Okay, we are live.
Boom, 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 boom.
Rubs hands, ready for the man talk. Now, I just want to say, first and foremost, before I do an informal introduction and everything, I'm going to um, invite those of you who are tuning in with us to like and share this video. Slide in somebody's DM, let them know you about that life. This is nation building business here. One way or the other, wherever you stand in the spectrum in terms of your opinion on some of the social issues that we're going to address today and all that. So let's get into it. Let's get into it. I just want to also say, I'm a man. I'm a man's man, unapologetically. So when we say man talk on the public square, let me tell you what I mean when I say that. One of our sisters, who all of us on this call, we know her very well. We respect her for her work. I'm not gonna call her name. She said, we be man coding sometimes, and she used that in a derogatory way. And I agree with her to a certain extent. And I'm saying that unapologetically, just like there's women's society, there's men's society. Everything is not just for just to appease somebody else's opinion and all that.
Yeah.
And with that being said, we have issues that I feel is very important for us to address. And I call two of my brothers who I have deep respect for, just based on how they move through the earth. I haven't known either one of them so long in terms of, years and cycles around the sun and everything. But these are productive individuals, people who I feel give more than they take in terms of society. And we're just going to talk about it. We're going to talk about some things today. So like and share the video, and that gives us the opportunity to just get right into it. And this is something powerful to slide in somebody's DM about. You know what I mean? Let them know you about their life. So I want to make some formal introductions because as much as we joking around, and that's a serious part of life, for me, and I think both of my guests will agree, cultivating joy and laughter is a very important part of being a productive human being, much less a man in this world with all this on our shoulders. All right, so and it's a serious thing we want to talk about. Just to lay some backdrop, I have observed for many years, and increasingly so, what I feel to be a chasm. I feel it to be like I always want to call it a genetically modified chasm. That's how I put it. Between women and men, especially specifically black women and men in this society. I say it's artificially induced, even though nature is nature. So we're gonna have our differences. That's just how it is. Big up Baba Walimu Baruti, who I don't know if he coined the term, but he presented the term to our community of complementarity, which means it's a more indigenous, probably a more holistic way of looking at what we say opposites attract, right? So there's going to be that complementary, there's going to be that creative tension between the genders. That's natural. And then there's some other stuff. And that's what I've been seeing, and that's what I want to address today with my brothers. And then, of course, the political campaign that we just came out of, it just exasperated it. It brought it to a whole nother levels of of shenanigans and madness, and also legitimate gripes and critical analysis. So everything in the spectrum. So I want to just read something that I wrote, kind of as a. Well, I'm not going to read it. Yeah, I'll read it. Kind of as I was preparing for this program, and we're going to jump right into it. Thank you all for joining us. We're taping this for the Ancestral Rock, which airs every Thursday from 2 to 4 p.m. on WRFG Atlanta, 89.3 FM, your station for progressive information and handpicked quality music. Myself, I'm celebrating my 29th year on WRFG. I started when I was -4 in my mama's womb. I'm only 25, and 4 years before I was born, I started this show. It's been a wonderful ride. So thank you all for supporting the station for community community information. One thing I must say is that WRFG has been on the air 51 years, and we've never taken corporate checks. We don't get money from the weapons manufacturers or the big sponsors who push poison in our communities, and we're here. And I'm saying that as just a testament to the fact that if we put things together amongst ourselves, we can finance anything we want to. You know, that's just a side note. Just a mic check real quick. Can y'all hear me clearly? Because I'm using headphones.
Yeah.
All right. So on the panel today in the cipher, my good brother, starting on the camera side in terms of what y'all see on the screen, in the middle of the screen. Brother, I've known for a little while. I know him primarily as a serious teacher of an African spiritual system. And that means he's a serious student, of course, that is taking the world by storm again. You know, we've heard so much about how people are leaving the church and the mosque en masse and returning to traditions of their ancestors. The tradition of Ifa is one of those that has always been on the hearts of the people since they were separated from their culture, since we were separated from our culture and brought into the diaspora. And Ifa is one of those traditions that has really gained a lot of momentum in the public consciousness. Let's put it that way. And that's he's also just a brother. Like I said, I see him as a soul brother. You know, really exhibits balanced character in many ways, and appreciate him being with us today. That's Baba Obasina, Oosarinu.
Oosarinu.
Yes, and next to Baba Obasina, this is the brother we call the Wild. Well, he called himself the Wild African. Let's just say that, because you know, in our culture, everybody got a nickname. I ain't gonna tell you what my nickname was, but it had to do with the size and the shape of my head. You know, everybody has a nickname. I'm not ashamed. I'm not ashamed. You know, I paid my dues. You know, but also a priest, the African tradition. Also, I met him first, really, actually, in the place where I'm sitting right now, when he and a group of committed brothers, in the midst of a global pandemic, brought a bunch of young children young people, not young children, young people, teenagers, as part of a rites of passage program to really ground themselves in a culture. And this is, even as I speak about it, it gives me goosebumps because I'm the product of a village, straight up. I'm a product of a lot of people who poured into me, literally and figuratively, the product of a village. I come from, of course, the great village of Buxton, Guyana. For those of y'all joining us from Guyana right now, peace and blessings to you. We're simulcasting on CAMS TV. Big up my brother Kidaki and, of course, his big brother Nigel Amsterdam, who was martyred some time ago when some madness entered into our village. But that's where I come from. So Baba Taiye Samuel is somebody who immediately I took to him because I see what he's doing with his work. You know, our elders tell us to think before we speak, think twice, and you know, they say listen twice and speak once, and make sure that, you know, if we talk a lot, then we do so much more than we talk. And this is what I could say about Baba Taiye. So Baba Taiye,
Appreciate that.
I appreciate you coming.
Good seeing y'all.
Likewise. So let's get into it, man. I just want to start, you know, in a very informal way, even though we're ultra serious about our topic. We're ultra serious about what we're talking about today. I want to ask both of y'all just a kind of wide open question, you know, starting wide. Do you see what I see in terms of there being a noticeable, something worthy of our attention, gender chasm that's happening within Black women and Black men in this society? Do you see that, or do you think it's kind of like hype? It's overstated, overplayed? Start with you, Taiye.
Yes, and also no. So for me, first of all, thank you. And then I just want to go back and say this. During the pandemic, when nobody wanted us in their spaces and everybody was afraid and shut down, I said it to you 1,000 times, but you opened up a space where we can actually get these boys and young girls who are going into women and manhood to actually continue in the midst of the madness. So I always appreciate that, and I thank you. Yes, so it's a yes or no question for me. One
Mm-hmm.
is, in the last 5 to 6 years, I've seen uh, the internet, social media have this crazy ability to create narratives in a 7 to 10 day cycle, and that narrative will run. And as that narrative runs, people start to repeat the narrative, and then don't even remember where the narrative started. Right. So, but then also in my space, people close to me, I don't see a lot of that stuff people close to me, but I see it outside. So I'll give you a perfect example. During the pandemic, there was a conversation that started. I almost remember to the day where in the wider spaces, people wanted somebody who made 6 figures,
Mm-hmm.
and that ran. And it was like, "See, if you don't have 6 figures, then I can't deal with you." When the reality is that the average salary for any man in the United States is about $55,000, right?
Mm-hmm.
So I watched this run, I watched it get big, and then I watched people start saying it over and over and over and over again, and then start saying things like, "I don't want a man that can make 6 figures, this, that, and the other. I'm not going 50-50." And I started realizing, remembering that I came up in the reggae era, and everybody was going 50-50.
Mm-hmm.
Like, you were combining incomes to do what you had to do. Like, there were certain people who could afford to take care of their families, but I was thinking to myself, if I look at the numbers now, there's a conversation happening about the 6 figures, this magical number that doesn't make sense, and also doesn't. When I look around my life, yes, people make 6 figures. I'm around people who have high, quote unquote, net value, but also there are people who are thriving who don't. The man doesn't make 6 figures. So to answer your point and to bring it back around, yes, I see these chasms being created. Sometimes I'm not sure whether or not they're coming from us, but most times I can see exactly where they're coming from. And it's part of I think, the goal to separate us even more.
I appreciate that, and we're gonna get deeper into that, of course. Obasina, Baba, same
Yeah, I mean,
question.
I definitely see it as a conversation that's happening a lot, on social media. I like Brother Taiye was saying, a lot of times I feel like it's a conversation that is artificially, being pushed.
Mm-hmm.
It might not even really have a person that's really behind it, but more so like the social media algorithms are made to um, made to push narratives and push content that creates animosity and anger.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, being that the entire economic system that we have right now, being that the majority of our industries over here are services, and the other part of it being tech. The tech makes money by eyeballs. The more eyeballs that is on the platforms, the more users that platform has, then the more advertising dollars that platform uh, can bring, which basically goes back to the people who are profiting off of it. People who are profiting off of these businesses for their their data and their advertisement. That the advertisement dollars that they can bring in. So I mean, it essentially just goes back to how much data can any particular company hold and have in their possession so that they can profit off of it, and how many eyeballs can they have in order to justify advertising dollars that they can bring in. So mainly, yes, the conversation is out there on social media. Yes, it is happening a lot, but like Brother Taiye said, when you actually talk to people, not only talk to people, but hear them talk about their own lives,
Mm-hmm.
like they not really dealing with people that the internet is saying that everybody wants. You know what I mean? Like, because you know, the ladies that you talk to and the people that are in your life, they still struggling with, you know, these Negroes who want to live off them, who ain't bringing in barely any dollars, and you know, and keep going from relationship to relationship, dealing with the same type of Negro. You know what I mean? So it's like, it's not really, it doesn't really seem to be happening in real life, even though that's what the internet, you know, people are saying that they actually really want. I think that everybody is really, you know, everybody, regardless of who it is really just searching for somebody that they can actually connect with. You know, at the end of the day, really, that's what everybody wants, is somebody that they can feel comfortable around. And, you know, if that person makes six figures, great. If that person doesn't, you know, most of the time that people are going to go for who they feel comfortable with.
So let's look at history real quick. I appreciate both of y'all the opening remarks. Both of you, kind of what I get from what you're sharing, it was reflective of the popular narratives, and that's very important. We're gonna keep going back to the popular narratives and dissecting that. I'm wondering, you know, as I came to this country, I came in here in the fourth grade from Guyana, South America. We were there in political exile and everything. And when I started hearing the first murmurings about this whole thing between black women and black men and all this kind of stuff, I had to say it's probably in the late 80s, early 90s. And the first context was how the welfare system separates black women and black men by disempowering black men. You know, if you get, or let me, yeah, I mean, disempowering black men, if you can't be eligible for welfare if you got a man in the house. You know, this kind of, that was the first thing I've heard, you know, even as a reference, just by people in the street, regular everyday people. I'm not talking about scholars and, you know, all that kind of stuff. You know, they have their place as well. I'm not dissing academia. I'm just saying just the discourse, the popular discourse. Started hearing it in hip hop music. You know, I came of age in the golden era. You know, we moved out to California in 1986. You know, so I'm in seventh grade, eighth grade, in the midst of crack central, gang bang central, Southern California. You know, and we used to hear a lot of these kind of murmurings. So I'm taking it back there because ultimately started studying African history and hearing Dr. John Henry Clark, and especially people like Amos Wilson, who would speak about this topic that we're talking about today a lot and everything. Dr. Francis Cress Welsing and other people, their analysis, of course, Minister Farrakhan, you know, Minister Khalid Muhammad and all these people, their analysis started going into deeper, like, let's trace the roots of this. And so when I hear, because when I heard y'all talk, especially what you just shared, Obasina, we got some sisters coming on today that may disagree with you in terms of, I mean, I know they may not, I know they have a different view. I don't know if they disagree with you or not, but they have a different view in terms of what they see out there in the media. One sister said to me, yeah, she asked me if I'm on TikTok. And she said, because I'm not on TikTok, I really have no clue on what's going on. Because she saw expressions on TikTok that just made her jaw drop. And I was like, well, I got some Facebook friends, or I don't know. I mean, they ain't my friends, but, you know, men, just during this, even this political campaign, that I'm like, man, who raised you? You know, and that hence the question, mama issues or not, because some people may really have deep issues with their mama. And even going back further, we all study from a school of African spirituality that has a very fundamental story about something that happened at the beginning of humans' walk on this earth between Yeye Oshun and other male Orisha. For those who are not familiar, I don't want to say, I want to give a false parallel, but the Orisha are cosmic forces that represent different deep aspects of nature, you know, which ends up being reflected in human nature. We will say that you can say supernatural. I don't think that's inappropriate to say. Both of my brothers here can correct me if they feel is a better word, but different aspects of nature. And we're given different tasks to do and still hold different tasks, you know. So I would say similar, not the same, but in some ways, how some people may see like archangels or the Neteru, you know, different aspects of cosmic forces which play a very significant part in creation. But anyway, the story goes that these Orisha came to Earth, and Oshun was the only one that was a feminine entity amongst them. And that, long story short, they ignored her in their deliberations. And she had the power of water, fresh water, you know. And so after being ignored for a while, she decided to withdraw her power, withdraw her gift. And quickly, very quickly, they saw that, well, you know, life can't go on, our work can't go on without this water. And, you know, there was a conversation. They went to the creator, Oludumare, and then, you know, they were chastised for leaving out their sister. And since then, it's something that is a matter of course, a matter of ritual, a matter of being very deliberate in saying to that energy, saying, you know, significantly, symbolically as well as literally, that we would never forget you. We won't do like our predecessors do and forget you, because we know how precious you are. So even if you're not into so-called spirituality and everything, we know what this world would be like without water. And that, in this context, was presented in the framework of a woman being able to, you know, a woman bringing this to the world, right? So after that long preamble, my question is, how do you think that this chasm that you see is that deep from that time, that it's always remained that way? Or can we start to trace where this has really taken root amongst our people?
Who you want to
Oh, I
start?
mean, yeah. I think prior to this conversation or recent times, what may be seen as a chasm is just like you said earlier. Sometimes women do their woman thing, sometimes women do their men thing. But we all know, or we've known, in my opinion, traditionally, that we can't do without each other. I think that if I was going to take out a people, and if I was trying to design a plan to take out a people, I would separate the men from the women.
Absolutely.
I would make the men and the women not like each other. I make them argue over petty things. I make them cancel each other over small things. I make them cancel each other over elections. Say, I'm not doing this anymore. You know what I'm saying? The spaces where the control they think they have is not the control they really have. So I make these big deals, and I try to show metrics and things, and oh, look what they did, and make them move further and further apart, and have them forget that the power is really in them being together. So for me, this chasm that we have, this conversation about chasm, has to be well discussed in context of where we're talking about what we're talking about and where we are, right? There's no Ibas without Baba, and there's no Ibas without Yeye. Just not. It's it. You know what I'm saying? There's no work without the woman. There's, you know, for the Awos, there's no work without appeasing certain female entities, if you will. So this conversation to me is getting a little insane, because it seems manufactured, but it seems like it's in hyperspeed. Like whatever was going on before, it's sped up consistently, and I can say that because I'm a little more seasoned than some folks, but I can see, and I honestly can trace. I had a timeline during the situation in 2020, but I was tracing something else, and then I started putting little marks on the timelines of other things I saw popping up. So when I talk about hyperspeed now, it's hyperspeed right now. And if you want to take out or weaken Black people, you separate the men from the women in a
Straight up.
different kind of way.
Straight up. You know, Dr. Amos Wilson has a really powerful lecture on Black male and female relationships.
Mm-hmm.
He goes into a lot of it there. You know, I might drop the link in the YouTube so the family out there can check it out. Of course, this conversation will live on your pages
Okay.
for those, you know, in terms of those of y'all who are watching this. But one of the things that he said often, if you want to destroy a people, you destroy their ability to love each other, which is what you just said, you know,
Mm-hmm.
period, you know. And it's something that has taken on new heights of intensity. And it makes sense to me looking at the art of war, like you just said, because in my mind, this what we call Babylon Kingdom in Rastafari is done. It's over. So the most dangerous enemy is an enemy that's desperate. They lose all rules of engagement and everything, you know, because it's done. So now you're just grabbing and frantically grabbing for anything you can find. And of course, the heart of a people is their women and men being in harmony. I was reminded that General Howard, who Howard University is named after, funny enough, you know, he said that there's three things that he will never teach the so-called former slave: the science of mating, the science of war, and the science of business. The science of mating, the science of war, and the science of business. And we ain't got to explain why. I think everyone can understand that, those of y'all checking this out. Obasina, what do you feel about that? That whole
So I mean, I feel a lot of things. As when talking about like history, talking about you know, like our culture in general, talking about like the divide and things like that. So first of all, I'll make my point early. So I really feel that it's really a result of two things. One, economic anxiety, which
Mm,
I feel like a lot of people in the country are feeling. You know, obviously with the inflation and the way that it is, with you know, the continuing effects of globalization and you know, regulatory capture by a lot of the multinational corporations of like our government, and people just feeling like basically regardless of how they feel or regardless of what policies they want, they're not going to get them. You know,
mhm,
only the people in power are going to get the policies that they want, and that increases economic anxiety among everybody. You know, not just the white folks. Like you know, the common thing goes on. You know, on like the news programs and things. So so that being one. Second, uh, cultural shifts. The fact that our country is, or the country that we live in, I will say, um, has a huge. There's basically a culture war being pushed by the conservatives,
mm,
and the I would say the more liberal side is simply just kind of like falling into taking up their side of it, and
mm,
basically everybody's just basically trying to argue about which culture should we have as a country moving forward, and he essentially just creates uh our team, you know, this team and then that team, and then they basically argue about which one is right, you know. And so but underneath all of that, there is a cultural shift where we are questioning a lot of the norms that were looked at as being um normal, you know, 50, 60 years ago.
mm,
You know, the gender roles that were ideal in the 50s, 60s, and 70s, you know, are all being called into question. The authorities that a lot of white folks feel really comfortable with, they're starting to have to actually look at it in the way that black folks knew about, you know, how these authorities actually were. You know, like basically the the um the FBI, the CIA, the police force, all of them were antagonistic towards black folks, you know, the entire time of their existence. But now white people are actually starting to look at it and be like, maybe these guys aren't who we thought they were. And that has caused a lot of issues because you have a lot of white folks, a lot of conservatives, whether they white or black, who still look at authorities as the right, the right way, basically that they are in the right. But you have a lot of people questioning all this. So anyway, my point is just that a lot of these things that affect the entire country, everybody in the country, it has an effect on our culture as well, because black folks were not immune to traditional values. We have our own traditional values. We have values and expectations, cultural expectations that existed, and a lot of those cultural expectations that existed kind of reflected the West. Some of them, to some extent, and one of those ways is the men being like the head of a house. But at the same time, we have also, as a culture, in African diaspora cultures all over, we have a very high regard for women, and that I think that high regard for women, and specifically those of us who were, who have a history of enslavement in our families, women had to be strong. Women had to step in and do things because your man could be gone at any moment, regardless of if he's doing right or doing wrong. Like, he could be gone. And so our women also did have a very strong, just in general, their stance. They're very, 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 very strong and very, very capable of taking care of things. And so now that the culture is shifting, we're questioning patriarchy. Black women are getting educated, in much higher numbers, and starting to get access to better paying jobs than black men. Black women are making more money. So black women are making more money. They're getting access more to the dominant culture, and and that, along with economic anxiety of basically, like Taiye was talking about, that the average man is making way less than $100,000. And all these things kind of like put together in the same situation will create an issue to where you're going to have some of those conversations. You're going to have these conversations of, well, what is your purpose? What do you bring to the table type of conversations. And that starts to be exacerbated when it begins to be talked about in the public forum, to where now those real anxieties that people have about being able to take care of a family, especially when it was more popular in the 70s for a person, a family to be, to be able to own a house, to be able to take care of a child, children, to be able to take care of, two adults in the house based upon one income. And, when that type of shift and those types of shifts in general, all plural, happen at the same time, it's going to cause it's going to cause a lot of stuff. It's going to cause a lot of issues. It's going to cause a lot of questions to be asked, by individuals.
There's so many ways we can go with it. I appreciate what you're sharing. One of the ways, when I was listening to you talk, one of the questions that naturally came to my mind is, or not even before a question, it was like an old statement that's often repeated. They used to say, when the U.S. sneezes, the Caribbean catches a cold, or when when the American capital system seizes, it affects the rest of the world. And what you're saying, what I hear you saying, part of what I hear you saying is that there's this domino effect. So there's this so-called dominant culture. I won't even say so-called. Let's keep it real. It's dominant. It's been a dominant culture for a while in this country, and it affects our African culture, even though, as you said, we have traditionally been a people who have had a certain kind of way that we live, a certain kind of code we live by, with our women, with our men, with our children. There used to be a time that you never heard about no black person being a serial killer, but there's been a whole lot of stuff being thrown under the rug for generations about black men molesting their children or molesting, and that type of stuff. So there's, it hasn't been always sweet. So I'm wondering if it can be simply summarized to say that the more we've moved away from our culture, the more we have been susceptible to these diverse, these strange winds that's been blowing. That's one question. But even that's just a kind of hypothetical question. I know y'all can jump into that if you want to. But I want to go back a little bit, just on a personal level, and ask y'all if you can recall, if there was a time, the first time that you became conscious of what we are now calling the norm in terms of gender roles. Like you say, like, okay, this is how this goes. This is how this is supposed to go. Whether this is something you saw for yourself or something you were told, like, this is how this works. Can either of y'all recall that?
Yes, but I came from a cultural community and an arts community. My mother always made more money than my father did.
Mm.
But my father was doing the work.
Mm.
It didn't change whether my father was a man. Even when they separated and my mother was making a significant amount of money more than my father did, there was never in my mind if my father was a man, right?
Right.
So I think we also have started to put this weight on if he makes more money or not, that defines how much man he is.
Definitely.
And the truth of the matter is, if you go to places, you go to Oshogbo, you go to Oyo, you go to different places, the market is run by women
from
who are making money.
Yes.
The man may not be making that much money. You've been there before. You see it. You like, wait a second, hold on 1 second.
Oh yeah.
But when you go into a household, you don't question who's the man or who's the woman. And I know personally places that I go and people that I love and I spend time with, well, I know the woman's making more money in Osun State. I know it. But it's never a conversation whether or not that man is a man.
Right.
You understand what I'm saying?
Yes, sir.
So when we start to really put this weight on it, because it's not always going to be equal. Like people's favorite person, Barack and Michelle Obama, right? She was making more money than this man, significantly amount more money than he was.
Right.
But do we question whether he's a man though? Do we question at the time when he was building whatever he was doing, he's a man? Now I make a distinction between that and men that just
at least
the business.
At least not for that reason. But go ahead. I don't want.
So I see this now, and I see it's going to be necessary. This is what I've been thinking about a lot. There are going to be some men that are going to have to do a certain kind of work, being that a time is coming when they're going to have to focus on some other things, right? There's a few revolutionaries that I consider my favorite revolutionaries that were in the trenches but didn't make a lot of money. And they relied on that doctor in the family, or that wife that was a doctor, or that wife that was, I think that given the time that we're in right now, with inflation being what it is, a possible economic downturn, the fact that it may get a little funny, we have to start to really question what we call a man, woman, and then also what gender roles are. Because if we start saying, this is the dangerous part, if we start throwing away men or women because of these perceived gender roles and what makes them man or woman, we are in trouble.
Right. And then as you mentioned gender roles so far, we're talking about economics. I want to dig deeper. Obasina, I didn't want to cut you off, Taiye, if you're not done.
No, I'm pretty much that was my kind of, landing the plane.
Yeah. So the first thing I would say, it was something that you said, Ras Kofi, that it reminded me of, Martin Luther King Jr. during that NBC interview, I think, where he was basically saying, after all that he's seen, he's starting to wonder if we were integrating into a burning house, in the sense that I believe that so many, I want to be careful when I say this, but basically that as a culture,
Mhm.
during Jim Crow, you know, there was a common saying that the white man's ice is colder.
Right.
You know, you had a lot of people with under Jim Crow who lived in terrible conditions. You know, like my grandfather would talk about it. You know, in a sense that like he lives in Tuscaloosa, Alabama. So he grew up in Tuscaloosa. He was like, you don't even look at a police officer. Like if you look at them, they literally might just kill you, and nothing would happen. You know what I mean? So like you live under these conditions to where it is literally you're living in terror. But at the same time, you also have to think about it in the sense of the economics of it, to where, you know, like they left the South to go up north to try to find better jobs. A lot of my family did. That's how we ended up. I'm in St. Louis right now. It's literally how we ended up in St. Louis. My grandfather went up here for a meat packing job, and you know, he got a job in the factory, and that's what he did. And so, you know, but what I'm saying is that so many of our ancestors and so many of us today look at the white culture, the dominant culture, as something that we aspire to.
Right.
You know, when people even talk about bougie, they're, you know, not even understanding, you know, I mean, it's a slang, but at the same time, to be considered a part of the bourgeoisie. Like they want to basically integrate into what they would see as the European aristocracy lifestyle. One that is living in comfort, one that is surrounded by beautiful things and surrounded by people catering to your whim and not having to do nothing. Right. And so it kind of goes back to the question of, you know, like Baba was talking about, you know, you go back to Oshobo, you go back to Nigeria, you go Yoruba land. So Yoruba land in general. So, you know, I'm a child of Obatala. And so being a child of Obatala, we know that Obatala has the wife of Yemu. So Yemu, so Yemowo, sometimes it's her, as her name is said, you know, like the mother who basically has money. You know, that you see these women who are like running business, and they're making money, they're bringing in stuff, you know, and women have a very large connection with business. You know, they're one of my favorite verses to chant is a Warren Meji, and a Warren Meji is talking about the child of the she was a princess, and the princess was basically going to sell her wares. Like women are connected to money. But like you said, also that doesn't diminish the role of a man in the household. That, you know, when you go to the household, the women do support the men, the women listen to the men, the women, you know, like there are gender roles to the extent that the man is highly honored, even though the woman might be bringing in a lot of money. And I think that our culture, who, like I mentioned, our culture, seeing that the African American culture, or the African cultures in the diaspora who were enslaved, all of them had to have strong women, like all of them, because the man's life could be taken, the man could be taken away from your household. So all the women had to be strong. This is different from European culture, to where women were literally seen as like property of the man. And so the women were basically kept in a subservient position, and you know, the man basically controlled the money, the man controlled the decisions, the man controlled everything, because the woman would basically be delivered to the man. You know, in much of the aristocracy, since that's what we're talking about, like people idealize. You know, like Bridgerton. That man Bridgerton was popular in the mud. Black folks watching that crap too, because they really, I mean, they love that European aristocracy mess.
Right.
You know what I mean? Like the Crown. Oh man, they was all over that Crown. Like they love it, because at the end of the day, you know, we can talk about ancestors, so we can talk about ourselves. You look up to the way that lifestyle is, and part of that lifestyle is that the man is in complete control, and the man has a wife that is kept and, you know, sheltered, and is property, and basically is the source of everything, decisions and money and everything. But if you have anything different, now if the man's not making no money, well, is he really worth it? You know what I'm saying? You got to think about like all of the cultural implications that come along with the type of lifestyle and the type of culture that you idealize. That culture, I do not believe, and I can't speak for all African cultures or all African diaspora cultures, but from the extent of what I see about a lot of cultures where in the diaspora and some cultures in Africa, not in all of those cultures, or in the cultures that are closer to me, those cultures do not necessarily only equate the man's worth to the money that he makes or the money that he brings in. They do, they expect the man to, yes, contribute and to provide and to be present and to, be a strong leader and, make good decisions, but they also expect that man to, make good decisions and also be loving and nurturing and things like that to his family and protect his family. But everybody in the household has a role, and everybody in the household is to be respected as well. At least as far as I've seen, as far as the ideal. I'm not saying how it always happens, but that's what's expected. And yeah, I think that like I was saying earlier, I feel like we've all been affected by the standards and the expectations of the dominant culture. And one of those standards and expectations is that the man is the source of everything inside of the household. And yes, when there's economic anxiety or there's questions about whether or not this man can provide everything within a household, then his very manhood is questioned, because that's how you set it up. You've set it up to where, the man has to be the source of everything. And so if he ain't making more money than the woman, then yeah, it becomes this question, well, who's the man? If she's making more money, is she gonna be making decisions? Is she gonna be lording over the man? Because that's the European culture expectation in the aristocracy, is that if the man is making more money, if the man is making decisions, then the woman is his property and he makes the decisions over her. Now, if you switch those roles where the woman is making more money, basically she's going to, you know what I'm saying? Like, is she the one that's going to oppress the man like the man oppressed the woman? But that's not our culture.
Right. Yeah, I feel you. We're tuned in to the Ancestral Rock on your station for progressive information and handpicked quality music. And those of you who are joining us live right now, we're taping this for wrfg Radio, linking up with our brothers, Obasina, Oosarinu, and Baba Taiye, Samuel. We're talking about ourselves. It's family talk, I do hold fast to the principle that, family business is not to be discussed in the public square. Still, there's things that are out. The cat is out the bag on some stuff. So we talking about stuff that's already just, out there, and and we need to attempt to reel it in. And I want to say that just even for whatever it's worth, because the more our society and our let me say our society, the more African people particularly integrate ourselves with this society and all of its bells and whistles, it's going to be very important to maintain and to be even more deliberate about maintaining some of those old school ways. Mama Marimba Ani told us that culture is a people's immune system. And I ain't never heard truer words spoken. You know what I'm saying? Culture is a people's immune system, and that's going to take us. It would take us many hours today just to dissect. What does that mean? What does that look like? I want to dig a little deeper, and this part of the segment we'll just call it the pressure test. That's kind of like the subtitle for this program and this series of programs are doing this pressure test. So what I want to do is I'm going to throw out some stuff out there that I'm hearing sisters talking about. And when I'm talking about what I hear sisters talking about, I'm not just talking about, I'm just surfing on Facebook and I just see whatever random person that look like a woman and that's what they're saying, right? And get us to respond to see if we see there's validity to that, if we see there's truth to that. If there is truth to that, maybe we can look at how some things can be looked at. If it's a bunch of foolishness, then we can say that too, and refute it. But first, before we go that, I was thinking about somebody who I'm sure we all have regard for in one way or the other in terms of his art or the energy he brought to the world. He was martyred, and I do use the word martyred. At 25, he said he may not change the world, but he definitely go influence the person who gonna do that. I'm talking about Tupac Shakur. Tupac said one time in one of his lyrics, "I wonder why we take from our women, why we rape our women, why we hate our women. I think it's time to kill for our women, time to heal our women, to be real to our women. And if we don't, we have a race of babies that will hate the ladies that made the babies." I can stop right there. That's from Keep Your Head Up. I wonder what was Tupac seeing that made him say that. And that might sound like so obvious. I could definitely give you chapter and verse of what I thought he was saying. But what was Tupac seeing that would make him state that in his song, Keep Your Head Up? You know, what was he looking at in society that would make him make such an utterance? Either one of y'all want to touch that? Because we're
Obasina, you
talking.
want to go? You want to go first? Because I want to look at something real quick and
We
find some context.
Yeah.
we talking about, we're talking so far in our conversation. We say, there is a chasm, but we're looking at the economics. We're looking at how the dominant culture has bled into our culture and everything, and looking at it from the inside out. I despise the word victim. And that's just based on my understanding of life. There ain't no victim, there's volunteers. Does that mean that there's not people who attempt to force themselves on people and that? But that's just a deeper conversation, But I don't like dealing with the victim role in terms of, well, it's just the white man did this to us, or the man did this to us, or capitalism did this to us, et cetera, et cetera. Right. And that's not letting the white man, capitalism, imperialism off the hook at all. It's just based on what I know who we are, Mm-hmm. But that's just me. Go ahead, brother.
Yeah, I feel you. So I kind of had a conversation with a young lady online that was similar to this, because she kind of brought it up, mm-hmm. like brought up the same thing. Like, we all come from women. We all, all these things. And I totally agree. I feel, and like the thing that I said to her, I was like, well, I feel that all these things are one, they're based off of material conditions. Mm-hmm. It would make sense for us to hold women in very, very high regard. Mm-hmm. But at the same time, does that make sense in the material world that we live in? Or does it make sense more so for men to be in charge of things, and and that to snowball over history into what it is today, into systems that people call patriarchy and things of that nature. And so, what I think Tupac was talking about when he was saying this was the inherent misogyny that is inside of a lot of different cultures, including our own. I think that, it's very, very important for us not to see our cultures as, something that is perfect and have these rose-colored glasses whenever we look back on our own history. Right. There's commonly a thing that it is told to people in the dominant culture in the United States that if you read history and you're not uncomfortable, then you're not reading history, you're reading propaganda.
Real talk.
And so, but at the same time, we also have to wrestle with our own cultures and wrestle with the problems within our own cultures as well, to understand that our cultures are not perfect either. Our history is not perfect either. From the sense that, African governments or pre-colonial African empires and governments were, involved in the slave trade. They captured people, captured their enemies, and would sell them to the Europeans. Like, that is something that we have to wrestle with. But at the same time, we also have to wrestle with how there is misogyny within our own cultures that we have, and that misogyny is based off of you know, uncontrolled patriarchy, or you know, things that you know we basically, yeah, I mean, it's based off of patriarchy,
Period.
and we do have patriarchy within our culture that was unassisted by Europeans, that we do have to address, because obviously, ideally, our cultures do have the viewpoint that women are important, women deserve respect, women deserve respect as humans. You know, even when you talked about Oshetora, you know, like these are things that are also within our cultures, to look at women as being just as deserving of personhood as men. And we do have to address those things, especially as is, you know, like music is a part of culture. And, you know, like it's one thing for music to degrade women and degrade ourselves and things of that nature, but you have to kind of put it within context. Like that stuff is theater. Let it be theater. Don't let it be your actual aspiration of acting these things out in real life. You know, you want to listen to music that, you know, degrades yourself, cool. You know, you want to listen, like it's fun to kind of act, you know, and be all tough and be, you know, this and be all that. But at the same time, you gotta, you know, when it's time to turn the music off, you gotta be a responsible adult. You know, take care of your business. Um, you can't be running the streets, you know, doing illegal activities and, you know, disrespecting everybody, every person of the opposite sex that you see, or you're going to be a trash human.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? So, like, listen to the music, have a great time, enjoy the entertainment, and but then, you know, when it's actually time to treat people like people, treat them like people.
Right. Right. Yeah, I feel you. I feel you completely. Taiye?
For I was looking at, for some context, that song came out in 1993, right? And you have, prior to that, the influx of quote unquote gangster rap, right? And being from like NWA, which wasn't the first gangster rap, but that's the one who kind of broke through, was 1988, right? So from 1988, this is giving some historical perspective, because I kind of remember when I felt music changing, and I had never heard the B word, and I had never heard the N word as much as I'd heard it during that time, right? So if you think about Pac coming up during that time from 1988 to 1993, and there's this influx of music that's coming and being pushed. Not saying that we are responsible for consuming it, but I just remember that time being a time when all of the songs had something derogatory about women. And before that, even if it was some music that was derogatory, it wasn't to that extent, you know what I mean? Which really kind of lends itself to the conversation about hatred. Yes, we had issues and stuff going on in our communities before that, but I mean, in terms of the entertainment piece, that's when you had it being pushed to the masses. So I remember at one point being in my house and sneaking an NWA album into my house. And I remember, now mind you, this is like, I'm on Big Daddy Kane. I'm on, you know what I'm saying?
Right.
Like
Heavy
so
D.
all the other stuff. And Big Daddy Kane, of course, was somebody who loved women. Like, but I'm sneaking this album in, and I'm playing this album, and I know I can't play this album anywhere else but in my room.
Right.
And so I'm saying the lyrics. I'm like, damn, like it was. I never heard anything from Brooklyn, New York. I never heard anything like this before, right? So I'm really getting into it, right? And I remember one time outside, I'm rapping the lyrics with my homeboys. You know what I mean? Ain't nothing but word to the. So all these songs I'm rapping. Then one day I woke up and I was like, wait a second. I don't know no B's and hoes. My mama not a B. My auntie not a B. My cousins ain't B's. And I had to stop for a second. I'm like, so where's all this coming from? And I realized that this proliferation of the music, and even when you say it, and then when you're outside and you're saying the lyrics, and then actually you have that persona. I remember in my youth when that became a big thing, a huge thing. I'm old enough to remember when people in Brooklyn are rapping like they're from Cali, You know what I mean? With no understanding of the culture out there, no understanding of Crystal Bloods. We rapping. Then Colors came out.
Right.
Then Menace Society came out.
Mm-hmm.
Then Boys in the Hood came out. And there were all this media that even if the movie had a message, all through the movie is bees, hoes, and everything else. So I just want to say we may owe Dolores Tucker an apology because we didn't want Dolores Tucker coming in and tell us about doing anything about our culture. You don't know hip hop.
Real tough. And Calvin
Butts, but she saw something happening.
Yeah.
And as I look back, I remember when it was happening to me and my friends.
Mm-hmm.
I remember when that word was becoming prevalent. I'm talking about 13, 14, 15, right? And I remember it not being a real thing. So when I listen to the Tupac verse, especially who he came from and what he came from, and where he kind of went to for a little while, there was a big influx in our communities. Film, TV, radio. Of course, hip hop is all even a counterculture, so don't tell us we can't curse.
Right.
I remember when they started putting stickers on the albums that said explicit lyrics. That wasn't a thing before.
Right.
It wasn't. Even now, when I think about something being explicit and something having content that's not good for people, you can say a curse word, but you can also say something that's implied. So nowadays, even on the radio, even if they take the curses out, I still can't play this around my daughter. I've watched it get to that point. So the point is I'm making in terms of the lyric that you just put out, that you just spoke about, was I remember a period of time, and of course there was some time before, when there literally was a time when we were on some hate shit. Excuse my language. We were hating. We literally had some kind of fake conversation towards women. Remember the line in Boys in the Hood when they're on the line to get food? And his mother says, "Yo, let the ladies eat first." And even in Ice Cube being polite, his response was, "Yeah, let the eat too."
Yeah, right.
For a lot of us, he was being polite because he wanted to get the girls, but still in there was the conversation of that word, those words.
And how did this whole thing infuse itself? Like like you said, I really appreciate how you lay in this modern timeline. For people of our generation can really identify with, and there's people in the comments that is giving you the high five in terms of you're right. It's a thing. It's a thing. And
just real quick. We know now, and we didn't know at the time, that labels weren't signing positive rap anymore. Right. They had gone off of it. They didn't want it. All they wanted to sign was gangster rap. And literally the directive, if you ask anybody who was doing radio, was signing people, find me gangster rappers.
Right.
That's all we want. We're not trying to do this. Everybody, once in a while, somebody snuck through. But we're talking about the golden era of hip hop.
Yeah.
Right.
Where they were like, find me gangster rappers. Because this positive stuff, for real, was a thing.
It was taking over. It was taking over. Black medallions. I remember talking to Babashola. For those of y'all who don't know about Babashola, during that day, he was just really recently crowned as a chief, a real cultural worker, pioneer in many ways in this society, in this city. We were talking one day about that time, and we were making the reference to Ileke. I was just even telling him for myself, like I remember when you couldn't have a medallion on and not know the science behind it because you could get beat down. That's how the streets was. It's like, yo, what's the math? Like, what does that mean? Oh, you got that red, black, and green on. You ain't what? And we were just talking about the same thing, like looking forward to really, using Ileke and everything to as another expression, as a emergence of that pride, which comes is not an empty pride, which comes with backed by knowledge, But it's something you said, Taiye, before we move over to Obasina. That's real talk. And I remember doing a show with Baba Bilal, Sunni Ali, and a few other people. Abashaka and I were the hosts of this show. This was at least 20 years ago, about abuse in the Black community. Abuse, and I think it was even abuse in the conscious communities, what we named WRFG. And Baba Bilal said, peace to Baba Bilal, much love. Baba Bilal said he remembered being at a convention, a black political convention. And at the way he put it, first of all, there was a what's that called? Like a resolution brought up from the floor for people to make a firm statement against violence, domestic violence in our homes, in our community. And the resolution did not pass. It failed almost overwhelmingly.
Wow.
And the way he said it is, if I tell you who was in that room, everybody here will faint because everybody's favorite leader was in that room.
Wow.
You know? So this is something that ain't just surfaced, like, you know. But I really appreciate how you laid it out, because I know it's not our nature. And it seems like time and time again, the more that our enemy, the enemy of our people, the enemy of our progress gets hip to the reality, the hipper they get, the more, the word is slipping me right now, but the more, just wise and skillful they get in their main job, which is to cause division and to cause our destruction, then they find deeper ways of weaving this madness into us, and I would say of aggravating something that has existed for a while.
Yeah,
that's how I see it. But that was serious how you laid that timeline, because it's real. Big up
think
Dr.
about
B
it.
Serious. Dr. B Serious is a person who, if you know him, he's playing the medicine drum, talking about, Om and really high science spirituality. Really beautiful brother. He produced a lot of people. I remember when he came out here from LA, he talked about how they tried to get him to run Def Jam West, to establish Def Jam West. He produced a lot of great musicians that we all know of. But in terms of hip hop, one of them was DJ Quick. And he talks about how they were in these meetings where leading West Coast producers at that time decided they want to put some positivity into the thing. This is before we all in the same gang and all that kind of stuff, And they was like, hell no, you won't. Shut it down. No, absolutely not. This is what's coming from the execs. You absolutely will not do that. That's not what's going on, So
think about the movement. Excuse me. Think about the movement. We had Karis One, X Clan, Public Enemy, Native Tongues. That's Jungle Brothers, De La Soul, Tribe Quest, Money Love, Queen Latifah. We had all these people. We had tons of good music.
Yes, sir.
Speaking about something else. You know what I mean? And then even I remember when I Got It Made came out.
Come on now. You
listen to that song. There's no disrespect in that song. It's just rap bravado.
Right, of course.
And this was an era when, for the most part, positivity was winning, and then all of a sudden, there you go. It's gone. I mean, we still have people, but I mean, I just remember the change. I can literally in my mind remember when the energy changed in hip hop.
Real talk. This is WRFG Atlanta 89.3 on the FM dial. Those of y'all who are joining us live, we're taping this for the radio. The Ancestral Rock is our program, which comes on every Thursday from 2 to 4 p.m. WRFG.org. And I also want to invite you, as a matter of fact, let me put that on here, to link up with us on our podcast. Follow our podcast OnDaFarm Radio on the what's that? SoundCloud. On SoundCloud, OnDaFarm Radio, OnDaFarm Radio. You will get archives from even some of the names that we've mentioned here today. We've been blessed to be in the space to sit with some of the people who have shaped our culture and continue to do so, and especially our revolutionary, healing, Sankofa, stepping out of Babylon culture, warriors, healers, and builders. Joining us today, Baba Taiye Samuel and Baba Obasina Oosarinu. Oosarinu.
That's right. Yep.
I always be thinking it's Oosarinu.
No.
And we're talking. The name of the topic is man issue or mama issues or not. And we haven't really gotten down specifically to that there, but we're getting there. We're starting with laying a framework. Just brothers, because I mean, like I said, we got some things to put to the pressure test. You know, so we can say yay or nay, and agree or disagree. Obasina, I know you were getting ready to share something.
Yeah, I want to get on this music industry discussion. Mm-hmm. So y'all know I'm a musician. So I like I've been doing music for a long time. And one of the things that, when you're talking about the music industry, I think that I don't remember which year this was, but I was looking into like hip hop, and they were saying that it was sometime after the 2010s. Mm-hmm. But they were looking at the numbers, and they were saying that the majority of the people who are consumers or buy, they're really talking about who buys. The majority of people who buy rap music are white.
Yes.
But a minority of white people actually listen to rap music. A majority of black people listen to rap and hip hop. But we're not the main group. We're not who they're selling to. And so, being that the market for hip hop, the market for rap is white people, and we already know what white people in general, or we know what the dominant culture in general think about black culture. Mm-hmm. They basically look at black culture from the viewpoint of the stereotypes, and mainly, looking at black men as the brute, the thug type. Gangster rap was basically like the thing that was perfect because it was exactly who they already thought black folks were. Black folks were buying it, so black folks were supporting it. So it looked authentic, to the wider market, because race music was always popular to white people. That's how they packaged it. They packaged it wanting to, sell to the white folks. They took off the black people's face on there so they could sell it to white folks. So black music has always been popular to white people. And so this was like perfect, being that it was a music that upped that played right into the stereotypes. White people could consume it and they could, feel dangerous, feel like they, they could pretend they from the hood and all these little things that they basically want to place themselves get out, right? Mm-hmm. You got a white person who basically want to be right inside of the body of a black person and, have this whole theater and makeup and, and stuff like that. Like the music was the perfect vehicle for that thing. And so, being that it is our culture, but we are not in control of the market of that culture, of course they don't give a damn if it tears the culture down, because one, we're not the main market. Two, it's perfect for the main market. And, I would say that in general, we kind of talked about capitalism a little bit. In general, the thing about capitalism is that it doesn't have to intentionally want to destroy something in order to destroy it. Mm-hmm. Because the main goal year over year is to increase increase your market share, and two, to increase profits year over year. As long as the number go up, as long as that trend line continues to be positive, nothing else matters. Yeah. That's why capitalism, the ancestor Smiley Domisene, Patrice Smiley Domisene, he basically said that capitalism is a fire. It's a fire that's raging out of control. Mm-hmm. It consumes and destroys everything. But I remember when I was in business school. So I have my MBA, and I was in business school studying business. And they were telling me, they were just basically laying down the basics of business and why we do business and all this other stuff like that. And they were basically beating into my head that the year over year profit growth is the number one most important thing. And I was to myself, I was like, that doesn't make sense when you look at a finite world. Like, how can the year over year profit growth be a thing? Because that means that in order to make something, you have to, one, get the raw materials. So whether that being, minerals, whether that being people, human capital, labor, and then you have to make those raw materials and make it into something that's better than its parts. So in order to do that, you have to consume. And then in order to make money, you have to sell it, which means that everybody else has to produce, and take raw materials and stuff like that to make money in order to buy the thing that you're selling.
Right.
So if it's everybody's goal to make more and more money, that means it's everybody's goal to basically consume more and more year over year.
To take us over the cliff.
Yes.
So we didn't reach the oil cliff, the this cliff, and the that cliff.
Right.
Based on that mentality.
The system itself forces destruction. So it doesn't even have to be a conscious decision to destroy Black culture, because you're pushing something that is inherently, like music has a spirit. Music conveys a spirit, and it evokes emotion. It evokes thoughts. It invokes emotion. It invokes thoughts. There's a whole reason why we play drums and sing the songs that we sing when we're in worship. We're trying to bring a certain spirit. And all music does that. So, we know inherently, many of us, we know that music invokes that spirit. We know that music brings that. And so if we're listening to something that constantly, feeds us a certain narrative, there are going to be people, just like there are more people who are sensitive to certain rhythms and certain drums, and we're singing to Orisha and they get mounted by that spirit. Well, there are people who are more susceptible to this type of spirit that is being invoked when you're singing the music that you're singing, or bringing the type of degradation that you're doing on other types of music. And that's what I'm saying. Like, it's theater. We have to understand that it's theater.
But especially when it's deliberately, not to cut you, is deliberately. There's been so much studies about the doctoring that goes into it. So even, let's just say Ray is just a little hip hop artist. He just he got style, he got skill. He don't want to be a part of the destruction of Black people, where he's played into this thing. He's a musician. Then the A&Rs and other people would go into the studio after Ray spit his verse and put all kind of stuff. This was what's his name? Baba. The war correspondent, Dale Jones, brought this out very clearly. And even about the Beatles, they did that with the Beatles. How it was shown how they would put in these subliminal messages in this music after they did their thing. So not just with Black culture, but especially when it comes to what I want to shift to quickly. I'm mindful of the time. Is accountability. So this is where the pressure test starts, because everything that's been said, we can obviously say, I can say with full integrity, that I don't expect nothing from a dog but to bite and to bark. Right? So then if I'm still laying down with this dog, and I'm seeing my people laying down with this dog, I don't know what, I'm not getting ready to be protesting the dog's bites or barks, because that's what dogs do. Like they say, you lay down on a dog, wake up with fleas. So let's talk about accountability from our perspective, from the perspective, again, even as it relates to natural roles and, I would say, expected perceived gender roles. And I'm not talking about from the society. I'm even talking about from many of our sisters, many of our women. I think it's a natural role for men to manifest a form of protection, because women are protectors too in the spiritual realm, especially, but we talking about physical here, for instance, and many other things. We can get into the whole thing of providing and the whole 50-50 and all of that. That's something that's a real conversation and needs to be had. Baba Taiye, I know that on your Facebook page you invoke that conversation often, and it's a good thing, because we got to be critical thinkers and not just accept stuff wholesale, like, well, this is how it is. Why is it like that? Just because that's how it is, whatever. So accountability. I'm gonna read off a couple things. One of the resounding complaints that I've heard from women who I respect and trust is that they want to see more of brothers calling out brothers when it comes to the foolishness that's taking place. That we don't call brothers out enough. We don't call, we don't, like, men don't call out men enough publicly in a way that is evident when they're up to foolishness. And I decided not to say, well, sister, I don't see y'all calling out each other enough either. I just want to go back to us and say, well, is this the case? How do y'all see that? Yes, or yay or nay? And let's go from there.
So I want to say this, like I always, two things. I'm going to start with this. Accountability comes with us asking a question to ourselves, Black men and women, but Black men especially. Do you love Black people and do you love Black women? Not romantically, but do you really? And when you ask that question a lot of times, and I'm not sure Black men as a whole ask themselves that question. They love their mama, they love their sister, they love their wife, whatever. Do you love Black women? The second thing is, it's so crazy, like, this process. And what used to happen is that it would be handled privately in some cases, and it wouldn't be spoken about. I don't know if that's happening anymore. I don't know if the public conversation does what people think it's going to do. You know what I mean? And that's a long story, but we have to be accountable for holding people accountable. When we know there's that kind of stuff happening, we can't turn a blind eye to it. We can't wait for somebody else to do it. It's gonna be uncomfortable. It has to get done. That's the baseline. I'm not saying that it's not being done, because I know instances when this has been done, but what I am saying is that it's still happening, right? And then for some of us, we know it's happening or we hear about it happening, and we're kind of like, that's not my business. There's a real, like, I'll give you an example without giving an example. That person got brothers and a father. That's not my business. I've heard this conversation. I'm not saying me, I've heard this conversation. So I think, yes, we have to handle it. Yes, we have to be accountable. I keep on hearing a lot of times that things are happening, nobody's addressing it, and the people are able to walk around. And in some of these cases, without saying too much, they can't be able to walk around.
Right. True. I bear witness. But
then, when that kind of stuff happens, is that a public thing? Or that person just gets dealt with? So there's absolutely accountability on our side. We know for a fact.
And I feel you on terms of the public thing. It's like, when you look at and this is, it's crazy, because earlier we were talking about how the morals of our enemy have become our morals. I remember Imam Jamil in a tribute to Kwame Ture, powerful speech on YouTube. He was talking about that. He's like, if it was a SNCC reunion, Student Nonviolent Coordinating Committee, Baba Mukasa was there, all kind of people was there, and Muta Baruka and John Lewis and all of them. It's Kwame Ture. He was sick at that time. And long story short, he was saying that if we are to be honest, when we look at the trajectory of our movement, and that this is a cycler movement, one of the things we got to be honest about is that one of the downfalls of our movement in the 60s was that our morals became the morals of our enemy became our morals. As Obasina said in another way, we're trying to be like them, bougie and all that kind of stuff. You know what I'm saying? So there's that. So it's a thing where it's interesting when we talk about accountability from that perspective, because what made me bring that up is white folks in white terror. I don't use the term white supremacy. So when you hear me say white terror, it's to replace that foolishness, because I don't know. White supremacy is just. But white terrorists would make a public example of the people they wanted to, whose behavior they wanted to deter. So there's that too, you know. But I feel you. I feel you. It's like some things, you know, it just happened, and I wonder if public examples were made, if it would be more of a deterrent from it continuing to happen. That's the question.
Yeah, I think for a lot of the sisters, they're like, yo, y'all don't see this happening. Y'all not gonna do nothing about this. And I feel it in some cases, like, yo, like, how is he? I was in a space a little while ago. I was out of town, and a person who was persona non grata just walked into the space. And I kind of, like, to be honest, forgot. You know what I'm saying? I just kind of like, and I didn't forget who he was, but I was doing mad stuff, and somebody came to me and was like, yo,
how was he able to walk around?
How was he able to walk into space? And I said,
you talking about Jesse Jackson?
Huh?
You talking about Jesse Jackson? That's my question. But that's a different conversation.
But I was like, yeah, you're right.
Right.
But her saying it was also like, yo, we got to handle this, right?
Right.
And I think sometimes we just don't hear them when they're saying, yo, what's up? You know what I mean? We like, yo, what y'all gonna do?
Right.
And I also think that, just like how I used to make examples, I think that we have to figure out what are going to be our systems for making examples, or who's gonna be our drop squad. Who is going to be, like, when you know this man is out of pocket, if somebody go do something to him, he got bail money.
Right. Yeah. Is there a support system?
Is there a support system when people get busy?
Justice. Yeah.
Because you're not gonna hesitate if somebody violates your sister.
Right.
But you may hesitate if somebody violate the homegirl, right?
Right.
So if somebody does that, like how are we doing that as a community? Like, that's the question I have. And I'm not saying this for an excuse. I'm just saying, on some real conversation, if we're talking about the reality of what needs to possibly be done, there needs to be a conversation on how to get these things done without saying anything too crazy.
Yeah, absolutely.
But to answer your question,
and we can take that, what you just said, and do what we've always done. You know, we deeply into secret societies. Everybody want to be down with the, you know. So we could, we can erect some secret societies for more than the freak offs and all that kind of stuff. You know,
these five brothers sitting at nighttime at 1 a.m. handling business is still handling business.
I say. Real talk. Obasina, any thoughts on that before we move on to the next? This is the pressure test segment. I'm calling out.
Yeah.
This one is about calling out brothers.
Right. I got a few thoughts. I hope it don't get me in trouble. So mainly, I feel like the public correction is basically to protect the experience of the person requesting the correction, right? But at the same time, that correction does that correction and that feeling of that person's safety, as far as their social media experience, does shape the culture, because the experience of people on social media essentially creates their perspective on what is actually happening in real life, outside of social media. To be said another way, like, basically, if I tell somebody to draw a princess, they're going to draw most likely a Caucasian person with blonde hair, a Caucasian woman with blonde hair, probably some type of crown or a pointy hat with like lace and big hoop dress and stuff like that. It's going to be something drawn out of Disney, because in their mind, the things that they consume, the things that they spend time on viewing and listening to and reading and seeing is going to shape their reality. And, you know, this is also, to go back to the original point, this is also why I feel like so many people feel like there is a problem in the chasm between men and women. It's because of the stuff that you consume are basically telling you that there's a problem between men and women. And so when they say, when people are, you know, when women are online talking about, well, it's not enough men correcting these men who are out of pocket on social media. I mean, I agree. I think, you know, well, to some extent, I agree. Like, there might be, as far as their perception goes, because we know that everybody's social media experience is not the same.
Sure.
So as far as what they are seeing, they might not see enough, you know, in their minds, quote unquote, enough men correcting other men. And so, you know, yeah, I think that it would be good for men to step in and say things on social media, regardless of how you feel about social media. You know, if you see a guy saying something that's crazy, yeah, I think that you should say something. And I do. I typically try to say something, at least to guys that I think are out of pocket, because I understand that people's social media experience does shape their view of the culture. So if I'm, you know, just letting some dude talk crazy online, you know, I want to at least do my little tiny part about, you know, saying something to do, so that whatever woman sees it, you know, she's going to not necessarily just think that all men are, you know, just allow other men to just run rampant, um yeah, that's going to affect her life outside of, you know, social media, and how she interacts with men, you know, even though what she's seeing is not online, is not real life, because most likely the person that be online, them people be trolling anyway. They don't be like that in real life for the most part. They ain't really about that life to really be, you know what I'm saying, as trash as they might be talking online. You know what I mean? People always keyboard warriors. People always got a whole bunch of courage when it comes to typing on social media.
Yeah, that's true. That's true as well. You know, there's many people though that that are, you know, a sister was talking to me the other day, and shout out to Miss D and our sister Mshairi. We will be on tonight at 6 p.m. Um, getting the same perspective of these questions from a couple of sisters in our community, who, you know, are powerful sisters, just like you are powerful brothers. But talk about the amount of women, and this will be the next one, you know, that show up missing, and the amount of women who are being physically assaulted and afraid for their life when they tell a man they're gonna leave him, and all this kind of stuff, you know. And that's real. I mean, I know of some of that, you know. That's real. So it's not just the social media thing. The social media thing is real because I would say, unfortunately, this is just my opinion, social media has become our main source of communication. There was a graphic that was floating around that I checked it. I never did no deep fact checking on it, but it seemed to be accurate. It's like a moving graph. It's like a GIF, I guess, that shows from the 1950s all the way to 2024, where most people spend most of their time. This is like church, school, family, this, that, and the third. Of course, in 1954, social media wasn't even a factor. And it was a lot heavy on church and family and I think work or something like that. And as the time has shifted to 2024, social media is overwhelmingly, according to this narrative, where most people spend their time. More than family, more than friends, more than church, more than school, any of that. Oh, I'm talking about overwhelmingly, you know? So interesting. Next point, real quick, because we're going to wrap up soon. It's kind of similar to what we just talked about, but there has been for a while, and I've noticed it myself. I've made this, to be honest with you, I've made the same assessment. Generally speaking, when there's police brutality, when there's violence, when a black man gets murdered, it's a different kind of outrage in the social media space than when a black woman, average speaking, a black woman gets murdered, a black woman gets violated. True or false? How do y'all feel about that? Let's go with you first, Obasina. Is this something you can say you've noticed? Is something that you can bear witness to?
Wait, I got lost. Say that statistic one more time.
Basically, they're saying that it's not a statistic, but basically the assertion is that there's a lot more outrage, generally speaking, when a black man is violated by police than when we're hearing about black women being violated by police, or when we're hearing about black women showing up missing. That they don't seem to feel the same amount of collective outrage. Of course, like Breonna Taylor, there was a whole campaign. It was a very creative campaign, about arresting the cops that killed Breonna Taylor. But generally speaking, this is a generalization, and I'm just asking if y'all agree with this, disagree. Any thoughts on it?
I mean, I don't know. I can't really say for sure, because I feel like people's perceptions are so dependent on what they see in the media and what their experience is online. And whenever you're depending on the algorithm to show you stuff, what I'm saying, you're always going to get a skewed perspective. So, I mean, the feeling could be real, but at the same time, it doesn't mean that that's actually happening, because all of us are experiencing, shadows on a wall when we on social media. Like, that stuff is not real. It's manufactured by a program. You know what I mean? Like, not even by a person. It's manufactured by an algorithm.
Yeah, real talk. And real talk. Go ahead. I know, Obasina, you're gonna have to wrap up soon, and both of us,
okay,
Taiye as well. I don't want to keep you out too late. I would love to be out here with my brothers forever, but
yeah, I'm enjoying it too. I don't know, so I don't know what the numbers say. You know what I'm saying? But I think multiple things can be true at the same time. So I will add to this, right? I think there's a little bit of this in that. When you see a black man get strung up, the automatic thought process is anybody can get strung up. Like, I think there's a little bit of that. Like, if they did that to him, we may already be, our existence may be threatened already. But if they're going to do that to him, they definitely going to do it to us. I think sometimes that's part of it, along with all the other things. I'm not dismissing anything else, but I also think that if you want to make an example of something and say you better not, hang that big black buck.
Right.
And watch the children, watch the women, everybody pause and say, oh, I better stay in line, because they can get to that guy, then they definitely coming after me and mine.
Yeah,
right. True. Which to the point of why some people are saying, well, that's why we got to be more vocal in terms of exacting justice when there is a violation, because that's human nature that says that. Let me make an example, for everybody to see. Real talk. So as we wrap up, there's so many ways to go. I always think of our Nana, Dr. John Henry Clark, when I come to this part of powerful conversation. He's like, let us bring to a close a thing which has no ending. Dr. Clark, man. Dr. Clark, such a soulful, beautiful teacher.
Yeah.
Such a soulful, beautiful teacher. I really, truly want to thank y'all for giving of yourselves, for agreeing to come on here with us today and to share some thoughts of something which is ongoing, as we said. The last thing, two things, real quick. I know Obasina got to go. We mentioned patriarchy a few times, and that is something that we mentioned it almost like in passing. And I want to acknowledge that, because many people will say, well, that is the root of what we're talking about here. That is the root, a patriarchal mindset. And for those of y'all who don't know what patriarchy is, I got to qualify all the time, Like my father right now is 99 years young. He's the patriarch of our family, period, point blank, the end. You know? But patriarchy, so it's patriarchy don't mean there's something wrong with, it's like having an elder who is a man, right? That's not what patriarchy is. Patriarchy means that his wife would not, by the virtue of her being a woman, my mother, does not have the same authority. Does not, by just virtue of her being a woman, does not have the same voice. Does not, we ain't even talking about agreed roles that they're playing in life and everything. Everybody ain't got the same strength, Baba Baruti talked a lot about how he would see his father come home in Chicago after a long day's work or with his paycheck and give it to his wife, give it to his mother, and she give him his allowance. Does that mean he a simp? Of course not. He knew his role. They had so I just want to qualify that. But with that being said, the whole thing about patriarchy, because that's a whole show, a discussion, a lifelong study in itself. My final question is almost hilarious to me, but I'm gonna ask it anyway. There are many people that feel that Kamala Harris was not elected, if that was a real election and all that, if democracy is real, but them is all kind of rabbit holes we can't afford to get into, right? That Kamala Harris was not elected because of sexism, because she is a woman. And that is the main reason that she was not elected. So we're bringing it back to one of the latest episodes of this divide and rule business in my mind. Like I said, there's something that's there. There's kind of vulnerability that's there. And so any wind that blows, any contrary wind that blows is going to exacerbate this vulnerability. The latest one in my mind has been this presidential election. How y'all feel about that?
Oba, you want to go first, Oba?
I was about to say, okay, so you just trying to completely get people being like, don't sign up for his class. This against that now. So you're asking me, let me make sure I understand the question. You're asking me, do I believe that patriarchy or misogyny is the reason why Kamala didn't get elected?
Yes. And so, then let me take it further, because that would be asking you to speak for white America and all that. I'm not interested in that. I'm talking about within the Black community, the amount of Black folks, because this was a thing. This was a concern. This was a thing that was brought up so many times that, Black men are the reason. Black men and Mexicans are the reason why Kamala didn't get elected.
Yeah. So, I mean, I think the numbers are coming in, and it looked like, now I could be wrong, but from what the numbers look like to me, 100% of the Black people who voted could have voted for Kamala, and she still would have lost.
Right.
It really, yes, Trump basically gained in numbers of Black men, but still a vast majority of Black men voted for Kamala. And, over 90% of women voted for Kamala, which we already knew that would happen. But it doesn't really matter. If we all voted for Kamala, she would have still lost, Now, does that have to do with misogyny and, and basically people just not wanting a woman in office? Probably somewhat. I mean, I definitely know some dudes who didn't vote for her because she was a woman.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not very close with them, but they've literally said that that's why they didn't vote for her.
Mm-hmm.
And they're Black. And so, it might have had something to do with it. But honestly, at the end of the day, I don't think that was the reason for, why they didn't vote for her. But it definitely was a reason that some Black men didn't vote for her. But at the end of the day, it doesn't matter. We all could have voted for her. She was still a loss.
Absolutely. So there's that, the aspect of the fallacy of American democracy and our political power in this country through that thing. That's one thing. And then what I was more addressing, which you would definitely address. The reason I asked, let me put it that way, is to address the whole thing of misogyny in our community. There's so many black men that I've seen online. I don't know them either. From Adam, they talk about like a woman ain't fit to run the thing, but these black men were raised in the house with women micromanaging miraculous economies and all that kind of stuff. So I don't get that part. Taiye, you're rocking in your chair, brother. Come on out with it. Come on out with it.
This won't be popular.
Hey, who cares, man? Who cares? That's what we want.
First thing is this: we have to stop thinking that we're somehow going to save this country. We have to stop thinking that every 4 years that these people are going to liberate us.
Right.
Let's go back. This is the first part. All the things can be true. Yes, maybe America wasn't ready for a black woman to run the president. But we all know this. Let me just throw this in there. If Michelle Obama ran, it would have been a different conversation.
True.
From this point, if you believe in the dream and the promise of democracy, the Democrats have been whack since Hillary Clinton. We knew that they had to run a rock star against this rock star. You don't like to say he's the most famous person in the world right now. We literally, from 2015 to now, a lot of us have been talking about this monster and making him bigger and bigger. We've been talking about the thing we don't want. He's in our conversation. He's in our household. We talk about him, and made him this huge thing. When the other guy, and everybody was saying when Biden was running, he was supposed to be a transitional president. We all knew that he was cognitively impaired. They've been saying, get a rock star, find a rock star, find a rock star. I'm going to say this to y'all. Y'all didn't even like Kamala 7-8 months ago. You were asking, where is she? She wasn't popular. She has one of the lowest approval ratings of any vice president. Nobody was checking for her. We said it. We used to watch the clips of her and didn't like her. Now I'm saying this to say, that's what it was. We cannot ignore that candidate got out-hustled, out-campaigned, digitally, and then the Democrats have been playing in our faces for so long. So what you have is, if you look at the numbers, you have people that voted for Orange Dude and still voted down ballot for their party. I say this to say this. Tesla Figueroa said this months ago. If you don't know Tesla Figueroa is, look her up. She said that this is a setup, that putting this black woman in at this point with no campaign, no open primary, anything like that, is going to lead to her losing anyway. My conversation was this. The process, if you believe in the process, has been hijacked because it's supposed to be open primary. You gave somebody that people were kind of lukewarm on it, and then in 5 or 6 months, you said, run this person. Like Baba Oba said, if we all would have voted for her, it wouldn't have made a difference. The bottom line here, nobody wants to really admit, is that we have a subpar candidate. I'm talking about in terms of rock star, not in terms of accolades, what she did. You know what I'm saying? She's good. But we ran a non-rock star, or you ran a non-rock star against a rock star. And the numbers show that the rock star, the guy that everybody hates, who is the rock star, was going up against somebody who came in the race late.
Right.
There's so many pieces to this, but we shouldn't get stuck on canceling other black people and saying black people ain't this and black men don't do this and black women are tired of saving all this stuff, because I'm going to tell you all this. For me, the process was hijacked a long time ago.
Right. I feel you.
And if you're outside of your bubble and if you're around, you'll see, and I knew this, that she probably wasn't going to win. Did I know she was going to lose by a landslide? That's a whole other conversation. But my point is this. When we get so emotionally invested into a thing, into a candidate that's going to end up doing some of the same things the other guy's going to do anyway, we kind of forget ourselves, and we kind of forget that the voting process is not even the biggest part of liberation. So we hang these lofty goals and dreams on this one vote, and we sit back for 4 years, upsetting our emotions and our feelings, and don't realize that America's going to America. And my thing is, like, if one thing we know, America be American.
Right. And somebody in the chat is asking, are you pro Donald? And I'm so sick of that conversation.
That's the thing. I can't have this conversation.
So that means you want Trump, and that goes into a real weak kind of this or that, really lack mentality kind of. I mean, I'm gonna speak on that. I'm doing my best to be objective as a host and play good journalist and all that, but let me just say, absolutely not. We're not having that right now. We're not talking about that. No,
this is part of the challenge.
We're talking about critical analysis, and it ain't no this or that foolishness going on here.
This is part of the challenge. When I said 2 months ago that Biden could not beat this guy, people were like, "Oh, you like so and so." When I said last year he's cognitively impaired, and the first time he sees this guy in a debate, he's going to lose badly. Oh, Taiye, I don't care. I don't know what you're saying. When I said that they're running the vice president, and they're running her in a race that she's gonna have a hard time winning because this guy's been campaigning since 2016. Oh, you must like him. For everybody's understanding, I'm from Brooklyn, New York. I watched this man try to lock up and take ads against the Central Park Five. I'm from that era.
Right.
It doesn't even make sense. But every time we go and we have a critical analysis about the fact she lost in Michigan because she was part of the administration that was killing Palestinians
and did not separate herself
and did not separate herself. The House rep is a Palestinian and said, "Okay, you're not listening to me. Watch this."
Right.
She lost because I'm just saying. So my point is that this thing where we can't, and we should really be able to critically analyze America and the government.
I mean, and that's the thing about it. Like I know y'all got to go. Trump, though, here's the other part about it. I remember when Donald Trump was the point of focus and the point of reference for many rappers. Some of them were actually hip hoppers too, and there's a difference. But that's a different story. Not just commercial, clowns. Many people in the hip hop industry, in the rap industry in the 90s, where he was like the thing, that's the point of reference. I'm gonna get that Donald Trump money. I'm gonna get that, not no Mansa Musa money. Let me get that Donald Trump thing. What I'm saying. So there's a lot of contradictions within our society that I don't think have not been addressed today. Baba Taiye, Baba Obasina, we appreciate you so much. Another one of those questions, and this is going to throw out there as a rhetorical one. I'm not going to ask y'all to answer because we got to go.
Well, yeah, I got to go. But can I say one more thing about that?
Yeah, go ahead.
Taiye was over here dropping fire. Let me just extend my answer just a little bit. So I was kind of saying it didn't really matter. Really mainly because I look at it in the same way that Baba Taiye was talking about. Like, quite honestly, we all have, and you and me have talked about this, Ras Kofi. Like, all of us as Black Americans or as Africans in diaspora need to be on the mindset of nation building, not necessarily in the same sense that Black nationalism was in the earlier part of the 20th century, where we're gonna take over land and all this other stuff, but mainly in the sense that we have to build organization and we have to build things and support organizations that basically meet the needs of our people. And that needs to be the main focus. Yes, I do believe that people should vote, but you should vote with the mindset that I'm picking my enemy. I'm picking the person that I'm going to struggle against for the next 4 years. Whoever you pick, you're going to struggle against them. And you just have to decide what level of struggle do you want. Do you want a really hard struggle, or do you want kind of a hard struggle? You know what I'm saying? But at the end of the day, it's who am I struggling with? That needs to be your mindset when you vote. Because all the politicians, it doesn't really matter. They're a part of the system. They're there to make sure the system works as the system is intended to work. So who are you struggling against? That's what you're voting for.
We appreciate you, brother. Thank you for joining us. Just drop your if you have any way. I know you have a powerful class coming up, and Taiye, I'm gonna ask you to do the same. But Obasina got to go, so we're gonna let him jump off, and I'm gonna keep you here for the next 3 hours, Taiye. But drop any kind of link or not link. Let me say it clearly. Please share any kind of media that the family can tune in with you, can tune into your powerful class that you teach, or whatever else you want to share in terms of ways to communicate with you.
Yes. So where I drop it. I don't see where I drop
No,
it.
I can drop it. I mean, I'm just actually to say it. I'm just
Oh, okay,
doing
yeah.
30
So
things at once.
you can find me. So I teach a class on the foundational principles of Ifa. It's called the Orisha 101 class. It's under the Oshelogbe Ifa Temple, started by my teacher, Baba Fashola Odunade. You can find me at the School of PAC, schoolofpac.com. You go there and you can check out the classes that we offer. We're doing the bundle, basically Orisha 101 class that starts in January.
Excellent.
All right.
Excellent. Thank you for joining us, brother.
Appreciate you.
Much love.
All right, bro.
Odabo.
Oda. Baba Taiye, let's ask you to do the same thing.
Basically, I'm on Instagram, Wild African with a K. But right now, today, if you need cola nut, or if you buy cola nut, I sell cola nut. You know what I mean? Obia Bata, to be exact. I have a subscription service where I show it to your door every single month. You don't have to think about it, worry about it. I'm always in stock. It's Cola Grove with a K, Cola, Kola, Grove, GROVE.com. Check me out there. And then I'm around. And I'm celebrating my birthday in Tanzania. Cola Grove, KOLA, GROVE at Cola Grove.
GROV or B, V as in victory?
V as in victory. Cola Grove, like an apple grove.
ColaGrove.com. Baba Taiye, Wild African. You say you're celebrating your birthday in Tanzania.
In Tanzania, we're taking about 60, 70 people out there with us.
Let's talk about that for a minute, because that's a serious thing. Tanzania is the place that, after much research, 4 of our families decided, in terms of repatriation, that's where we wanted to go. That's where we wanted to. We didn't want to go to Ghana. We didn't want to go to Ghana at the time. This was in the 90s, because it felt like going back to Brooklyn. Everybody we knew going to Ghana, It might have been short-sighted at the time. Big up all the 500 and something Africans from the diaspora that just got their Ghanaian citizenship.
Right, big up.
But Tanzania, man, Tanzania is a beautiful place. So I'm looking to be with you on your birthday on that one, brother.
Yeah. I love the place. I produced a documentary there with Gabriel Union and Dwayne Wade in 22. Yeah, 22. And it aired in 23. And I decided I just want to go out there and spend time. It's beautiful. East Africa is beautiful, as we all know. But Zanzibar has some of the clearest water I've ever seen world around.
True.
It's just the energy is great over there. So
beautiful place.
Yeah.
I appreciate you, man.
Thank you, brother.
The question that I'm gonna put out there to the family, and again, is this one is that for Black people who voted for Donald Trump, it is said that they absolutely must hate Black women, especially, and Black people in general. That's the question that's what was put out there. Black people who voted for Trump must hate Black people in general. And I gotta go. I just remembered a Zoom thing I'm supposed to be on right now.
No worries. We can talk about that later. We can tackle that's a deep question.
That's a deep question.
That's a deep question. I know one of our brothers who is on the ground daily, and Baba Obasina said, "Who do you want to struggle with the most?" His thing is, he's trying to get up out of here, but he's trying to get all he can before he got up out of here. And we saw, just real quick, his thing was like, how do we acquire land? Do we have to do? This brother has been a Democrat or whatever, or independent for a long time, but we had a long conversation about why he did what he did,
right?
Which we could discuss, you know what I'm saying, down the road. I honestly know just as many bad people, quote unquote, that voted for Kamala that voted for dude. Like I just don't know if we can just say everybody who did that needs to be thrown away. It was bad, because there's some people that did it, and if they had the space, had the opportunity to have a conversation where they had discourse with their own people, I think some people may be surprised that where they arrived to where they got to.
I know they would be. That's why I even qualified that by giving it some space on the program, because I know it's deeper than it. Baba Taiye, thank you, brother.
Thank you, bro,
for being who you are.
Thank you, bro. I appreciate you, man.
We need more wild Africans in this world.
Yeah, we got some. They coming. They coming. Keep doing the work, bro. I appreciate you, man. All right.
Family, take care of yourself. Take care of one another. We're on the road. We're going to go ahead and seal up. And we're taking this to WRFG Radio 89.3 on the FM dial. Much love to Camps TV, our family in Guyana, specifically in Buxton, Guyana, but definitely not limited to Buxton, doing powerful work in terms of public education every day. Politics 101, Buxtonian Morning Time, and so many other programming, you know. So much love to the family at Camps TV. We're happy to be a part of that family, and you'll be seeing more of us from time to time with conversations that are relevant to the African world, you know, and to the world in general. If it's relevant to the African world, ultimately it's relevant to the whole world, because if the root of a tree is starved, the whole tree, the root, the fruit, much especially the fruit, but the branches, everything going to mess up themselves, you know, and they won't flourish. But if the root of the tree is nourished, then the whole tree is going to be beautifully taken care of, and that's the reality. So much love to you all. Continue to support WRFG Radio. Let me just drop that in here so it will live in your replay. WRFG.org is our radio station. The Ancestral Rock is the name of our program. It airs every Thursday from 2 p.m. to 4 p.m. The Ancestral Rock. And of course, my name is Ras Kofi, the farmer. I want to send much love to all the gardeners out there, all the people growing food to feed the nation. Odabo.